and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Douville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who has seen the wonders that you can find by the Lost Lake.
Nice. Tim Longo.
Yeah, see? Tying right into one of our themes that we'll be talking about tonight there. We, of course, are talking about Minecraft. I actually want to, before we do that, Tim, a couple things I want to mention. One is, last week we released our end-of-year episode where we do the, our takeaways for the year, mostly from the interviews, pretty much entirely from the interviews. For those of you who got it early, please go and re-download. There was some bad stuff that happened at the beginning, and I'd hate for people to miss out on Jordan Mechner's points, which we discussed, because I messed up in the editing and I revamped it and re-uploaded it, and it's fine now. So if you have it, re-download it if you haven't listened to it. So that's one. And then two is I want to mention, because it's about 10 days away now, if you're getting this when it releases, the community from the Discord is holding the second Defeating Games for Charity event that benefits the Video Game History Foundation. It'll be on Twitch, and there are streamers, including some of the Discord members and friends, and Tim's doing a session, doing 2 hours of Trespasser at Discord request. So I just wanted to say to please stop by and support if you're able to. All the information for it can be found at defeatinggames.com. And to learn more about the Video Game History Foundation, of course, you can search that on the web. But about their mission and everything, we did an interview, and by we, I mean the Discord, did an interview with Phil Salvador, the library director of the Video Game History Foundation, which aired back, I think, in December. I'll put links to both the charity site and the interview and the Video Game History Foundation in the show links if you're looking at the show notes. So that's the business taken care of. I'm looking forward to that. I believe we have a stretch goal, which involves someone from the community playing a game we worked on and having us there talking about it while it's played. Playing it blind too, first time ever. So it's if we get there, I don't know what.
Oh, I didn't know about the blind part. That's interesting.
First time ever for this player. So
okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah, should be interesting and embarrassing. So look forward to that. Embarrassing for me anyway. I don't know how you'll feel about it.
I mean, it'll be embarrassing for me because I will have no memory of anything we did.
True. I will be like, don't you remember, Tim, when blah blah blah? You had an earring back then, and hair.
Nice. It'll be as if I'm playing it for the first time as well.
That may be true. So that should be interesting. Anyway, let us return to Minecraft. You probably have the most stories this time. For me, there's not a lot more that for me has changed, but I already want to hear about going around with Lost Lake. And I know you've worked with other players in the community, and then I want to once we have some of those stories, maybe talk about the community aspect of the game as a thing.
Yeah. So I had some good long sessions since we recorded last. It's obviously been a while, so I've had more time. But relating to some of the topics for that, as it then ends up connecting to some of the community members that I've been, and it hasn't been like long adventures, but I've been interacting with them some. And I think I might have actually accidentally gotten onto one of Lost Lake's streams this week too, because I play like in my lunchtime, and he was on, and it turned out I think he was streaming at the time. So I guess my text chat was showing up or whatever. So he gave me a tour, and came to my house and things like that. So that's kind of the macro topic, but I think one of the topics related to this was just sort of the setting milestones for yourself side of the game and the genre itself. And so the reason I bring that up is my recent sessions have been all about getting to those milestones, and they're not any that the game gives you. They're just ones that you seek for yourself. And the reason is because I wanted to visit I wanted to go find your places if I could, and don't tell me where they are yet, because not that you could describe it, but I want to I
could tell you exactly where it is relative to you by cardinal direction. So,
Yeah, don't say anything.
I almost left you a map when I went there. the other time, because I kind of was working out how to do that at the time. Like, there's a cartography table,
real map. Yeah. Well, recently I woke up. Well, I didn't actually see it. I woke up and didn't see it, and then Lost Lake was in my house, and he looked at the ceiling, and he had put a map upside down on the ceiling. So when you wake up, you would look at the map when you wake up of the area. And I was like, "What are you looking?" Because you can see the character's head look up and down in the game. Yeah. And I was like, "What are you looking up there?" Oh, there's a map on the ceiling above my bed. So anyway, yeah. So, but in order to interact with the community more, to go find your bases and stuff. I had set a milestone that I wanted a full set of iron armor, a shield, just basically be very protected, so I could feel like exploration is not going to be, as much of a fearful thing. And so that's why I had kind of been turtling so long, and Moores and I were discussing it online. Shout out to Moores, who I'm going to talk about in a bit. And he's also building his own thing. And he and Lost Lake have created kind of a causeway of sorts, as you've probably seen.
I've not yet, actually.
Oh my gosh,
that's kind of why I want to hear some of this stuff. Because
it's epic. Yeah. So the journey to Lost Lakes, I will call it town at this point. Is epic. Yeah. So I'd turtled, and Moore said he does the same thing, right? You want to get to a certain point, and that's one of the things I love about this genre, is that there's kind of inherently built in milestones, because if you want to actually leave your area safely, you have to build up, right? You have to get certain, in almost all of these games, there's some sort of armor, right, that you need to get, and then there's better armor, and then better armor. And so I had accomplished that milestone. First of all, to back up a little bit, my spiraling down eventually paid off. I found the caverns I needed to find. Amazing cavern, very, big waterfalls underground, very deep. I think I'd hit bedrock. I definitely hit lava. I found diamonds. I found iron. Not a lot, more than I wanted. I definitely need more iron. Now I definitely need more iron after the story I'm about to tell, because it's all gone.
Well, if you find Site D, I always leave some stuff like that around and just say, hey, whatever you want. There's signs all over my place like, hey, want some eggs? The chicken's probably laid some. Have some, and whatever.
Okay.
My places. And I have a panda bear in there now as well.
A panda bear? They have panda bears in this game now?
They apparently have panda bears in this game right now, but I don't know what to do with it. I did have some bamboo that I owned. So the panda was just in my base, when I logged in at one day, and I'm like, well, I don't know how it got in here. There's no holes, so it must have just kind of spawned in here.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. And I'm like, oh, but I have bamboo, because at one point I got some bamboo, didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I went and ran and got the bamboo. I'm like, this will totally work. And of course he followed me, and he followed me to a space where I quickly built a pen around him. Because when I got the bamboo, I got a bunch of fence stuff as well. So now I've got a penned in panda bear with a sign next to it saying, don't know what to do with a panda bear. Have fun.
Oh man, that's amazing. Okay. So you're starting your own zoo. I see.
I have sheep, panda, and chickens right now.
Yeah.
A lot of different wheat areas.
You need an armadillo, and you need some,
pigs. Pigs are my next my big ad, I think.
Yeah. So I had achieved that goal. One of my favorite things in this game, but in a lot of these games, although to be honest, none of them are really quite like Minecraft when it comes to mining and what you find while you're mining. Because Valheim, for instance, doesn't really have an underground. So,
interesting.
You can dig down into the earth, but it's more just to get stone or resources, but you can't keep going and find caverns and stuff. It's
I see.
Yeah. That way, even though it's procedural, etc.
Right.
But so one of my favorite things in this game is that using that technique, as you commented, my tunnels are fairly claustrophobic, because I just build 2 cubes high, and then eventually you break through though, and you find this amazing situation. And that's, of course, where I found my iron, and of course, where I find all the danger. And so I, chipped away eventually, no pun intended, and found enough iron to build some armor, not even a full set. And the caverns have gotten way more elaborate, I feel like, than when I used to play in the old days.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just incredible. And so I had done all that, and Morris and I had been crossing paths now and then as we played, because I think we might be in the same time zone. I forget where he's at, but and so we would chat through text, and then at one point, Morris was like, "I'm going to come over," because he's actually not too far from me, as opposed to Lost Lakes, which I'll get to that in a second. And so he came over, and I was like, "Oh, listen, I found this cavern. You want me to show you this cavern?" And I think he was a little hesitant. And I asked him I asked him for his permission to tell this story, and he gave it to me just to be transparent. So
I asked nobody for any permission. So
yeah, no, I just, in this case in particular, because it was a wild ride. So it was like, yeah. So he followed me down. We went to the big caverns that I found, and it's multiple like network caverns. There's waterfalls underground. I actually want to find the source of the water and see if I can figure all that out. And we get down to this one section, and I have kind of, I've carved out some safe ways to navigate it for the most part as I've been collecting iron and stuff. But I didn't even have I think I had just gotten a full set of armor at that point. And he was kind of like cobbling some stuff together. And there's this big waterfall, big open cavern. And as I was typing in there, "Hey, we're about to go around a corner. You should put on crouch so you don't fall off the ledge." He runs forward and just plummets.
Oh my God! Right into the waterfall or whatever.
No, near the waterfall, but just to his death.
Just finds the space.
No,
right.
And it was just the most tragic, but also like comical Minecraft moment where I felt so bad because I brought him down there. I'm like, "Hey, Morris, let's go look at this. Let's go spelunking together." And
nice set of army you got there, Morris. It's a shame if anything happened to you.
Well, that leads to the next part of the story because and this is a very, very deep cavern. I mean, you know the one, right? I mean, you know the type.
Oh, I do.
It sounds like you found them too. And so,
several.
yeah. And so it's, I mean, a glorious thing, but he just plummets. And I'm like, "Oh no." And we look down there, or I look down there at that point. I'm like, "Yep, there's the stuff." And I hadn't been down at the bottom of it yet. I had only just found it. And so he came back over. I geared up, and I'm like, "Okay, listen, we're going to go try to get your stuff. We got to do this. I'm sorry I'm sorry that I brought you down here." So I carved paths. We eventually got down there, and, I killed an Enderman. There was a witch there. We were just like, it was a whole adventure.
You were beset. Yeah.
Yeah. And he doesn't have anything basically. Right. So he's behind me trying to survive. And like, I'm running out of torches. Like, it was just one of those real Minecraft stories. And it's really for people like me who like the survival mode, which not everybody does. It was like one of those stories. And we get down there and there's no stuff. And then the witch comes and poisons me. And then I go down to 1 health. Right. And then a zombie comes and one-shots me, even though I have all my armor on. And I lose all my stuff. Wow. And so we both respawn. I go back down there with nothing on, using and it's actually, some of the sections are dark, so it's very dangerous. My stuff's not there. All of my stuff. And I had decided for some dumb reason to bring my extra iron with me.
Of course, all your iron was with you, yeah.
My iron bars were on me, yeah. And so then I did some research, and apparently once the chunk is loaded, I don't know what the heck a chunk is, or how big it is. I think Moore said it's like 1,000 by 1,000. Once that is loaded, you have 5 minutes before your stuff despawns, which I did not know. And so that's where both of our gear sets went. Wow. They just disappeared. And now, all that being said, this has happened to me many, many times in this game, fallen into lava, like, you name it. And Moore said the same thing. It's like, "Oh, this is nothing compared to stuff that's happened to me. Full sets of diamond, those sorts of things." So I get it. It doesn't take away the sting. And also,
Yeah.
And also, it is such an important part of the game for me. Like, as an example, in Fortnite, I've been playing a lot of the Lego mode, and I turned on the feature that is off by default to drop your stuff if you die.
Oh, wow.
Versus respawning at your base with all your stuff on you, which is probably more kid friendly, right? That's probably why they do that.
Yeah.
But I turn that off because I want that tension.
Because you're not a kid playing with Legos. This is serious business.
I'm not a kid. No, but I really love, I think what I realized over time is that for this genre.
Oh, yeah, the stakes. The stakes are really important.
You want that. Yeah, you want the stakes to be high, and you want exploration. I want exploration and going out to mean something.
Yeah, to be risky.
Yeah, to be risky. And so I have to accept what happened to us, but it doesn't make it any easier because I had hit, going back to my milestone point, I had actually achieved the milestone I was trying to achieve. Right. And then literally minutes later,
lost it.
That's
hilarious. Yeah, I should take you on a tour of all the things I've found because it's been a lot. I mean, so the thing I did most recently, this was something I've wanted to do for a while and just was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And it was some more underground exploration that kind of like took me through like what I wanted to try to do. But near Site D, there is a town, but it's across like this huge hole in the ground. There's also like a river or something. Like I could get there. It wouldn't be terrible to get there or anything. I'm not really interested in the towns, to be honest. I'm way more interested in the underground wonders. And I found a geode little mini cavern down in this place I finally got to as well, which was super cool. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is interesting. Like I can get anything for this. And it's like, no, if you destroy it, you just destroy it. You destroy the beautiful thing, which I thought was also kind of cool. There's no resources here. It's just pretty. So just go in there and enjoy it.
One thing I forgot about, just to interject really quickly, is I think if you're using certain tools to break certain things down, you won't get the resource. But if you use the higher level,
I know there's there are enchantments to do this. Yeah,
that could be the case there. I don't know.
Explain that to me. Yeah, but in any case, so there's this huge, really deep hole, and it's got a huge waterfall that comes basically out of that town, gigantic. It's like Niagara, just like pouring down into this enormous cavern that you can see, but it's all daylight down there, and so you could be down there and looking up and know what time of day it is. I think it took me 4 or 5 in-game days. I didn't just tunnel down. I wanted to build a inside the cavern way of getting down.
Machu Picchu.
Yeah. So, there was, at the very beginning, I did tunnel down just a little bit, but I didn't originally. Actually, now that I think about it, originally I started on one side of it, and I just built my way down to a certain point and then started building across because I could see that on the far side, I'd be able to build down further. And then once I did that, I'd be able to build out in the middle where there were these pillar formations that were just these tall pillars. And I'm like, well, if I can get to one of those, then I can just build a spiral staircase to the bottom. Which is not exactly what I ended up doing, but pretty close. So I ended up just making okay, well, today I'm going to try to get this far. So if I could just get across to over there, I could lower myself enough to get back over to that pillar. And then, that would be tomorrow. The day after, I'll get to the very bottom and I can start putting torches down there so it's a little safer. And I finally managed all of that and then built a huge staircase back up so it doesn't take so long to get down there because there's a lot of traversal just to get, from the stuff I built. It's all that stuff is now useless. It's well, I don't need that anymore. Now I have a fast way down. But originally I had this really complicated, okay, go here, carefully go down this part, and then, you'll find in adventure locations where it's somebody 100 years ago put in 6 spikes and tied a rope through them. And that's, what you're still using 100 years later. This is Everest or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was like that. At the beginning, and then there was areas that were a little wider because it was a little easier to build, but and I made use of a lot of the crouching, which was why it kind of went slow, is because I was building long paths. I finally get down there. I did find that geode. I finally mapped out this whole cavern, which itself took a couple of days of just I need more torches. I don't have enough torches. It's way bigger than I thought down here because it went underneath the town. And then I got to one corner that I hadn't been to yet, and there's another cavern that it goes down into from there. And I'm like, how am I going to get down there? And it's like, I'm not getting anything for this except, I mean, there was some coal and iron, not tons or anything like that, maybe 20 of each. And I'm like, but now there's this other thing I'm looking down at, and I can see some greenery down there. And I'm like, there's a whole nother lost world down there that I got to go check out. And that's been my story, with a number of different caverns. It's just most of them have been underground, or the lost dwarven or whatever, civilization that I found at one point, or, whatever, all of those things. It's been like, how do I, when I died to lava and all my stuff got dissolved, it was because I was trying to get over the lava to see, because it looked like there was a cavern behind the lava. Eventually I did do that, and there wasn't anything there. That's what made it even funnier. It was like, I finally got across, build a bridge over the lava. I just had gotten up near it, and I was starting to build a bridge, and like a skeleton was behind me and just shot me off the bridge and straight into the lava. Yeah, and I was like, oh man. And I was carrying some diamonds. I had, of course, tons of, armor and all that stuff. And I was just like, oops. I guess that's a thing you got to kind of watch out for down here.
Right.
So it's been like that.
You're still playing Spelunky.
I'm still playing Spelunky.
You're spelunking in another way.
In another game. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's this game. I mean, I think, even though I love the genre, I've played so many versions of this genre. I think as far as the pure sense of exploration, I don't know if there's a game equal to it for me than this one, just because, the procedural aspect, and you're really never sure when you're going to find, because similar, I think your caverns, I do want to come see the ones you're talking about, because they sound bigger than the ones that I found. But even the ones that I found, like, I think as I'm exploring them, they kind of are all connected in a way. But every time I find that connection, it's this new, like, oh my gosh, this is connected to this, and
voxels.
yeah, it just keeps going, and then the simulation stuff that we talked about before too. I've kind of have a renewed and completely new appreciation for, because, like, Moors and I were talking when we lost our stuff. There was a point when he was predicting that maybe his stuff had gone downstream.
Right. Yeah.
Because that can happen too.
Yeah, I thought of that. Yeah, that was my first thought. It was maybe it went downriver. I thought that's where.
Yeah, water flow is a thing, and so the fact that water flow is a thing, and that big waterfall is coming from someplace above, and I want to find it, and the fact that I could swim down and go through that hole and then find that cavern that way is amazing to me. And then, he had left at that point, but I decided to test his theory out. And so I swam down and followed the water, and it did go through a hole, and it did go underneath. Nice. Now the stuff wasn't there, and it eventually kind of ended near some lava. It wasn't to lava. So I don't think I think the stuff just despawned. People have said that they've gotten to their stuff and watched it despawn because it was at 5 minutes, which is like even more troublesome.
Tragic.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I don't know if it's a technical limitation or something, but it is, like, the corpse retrieval is a real core thing in these games. And I've been playing games like Valheim for so long now that it's like, you really can, you're going to be guaranteed your stuff will be there if you can get back. And I think that I'm kind of now bummed that they have this limitation in Minecraft. I can imagine there's a reason for it, but
well, yeah, there is a reason. I expect it's the same system that governs all the other crap. So basically, because everything is a block you put in your inventory, right? That I think that I've had cases where I'm like, I am out of chest space. I have 6 chests filled with cobblestone, and I don't care to collect it anymore. And knowing that I can just drop it as long as I don't pick it up. And next time I come back this way, it'll just be gone. Is like, oh, thank God.
A cleanup factor.
Exactly. And it's so, like, I think it can be empowering, but it also puts pressure and stakes on your losses. So, it means you have to be that more thoughtful, about, like, I put up a lot of barriers actually to prevent myself falling off of ledges that I know are there. So when you come into my spaces, you'll be like, this has like been like American citizen proofed. There's like little, little gates and, walls and stuff like that all over the place. And I'm like, yeah, because I run everywhere and I'll just forget and I'll run right off the edge and die. So I
well, and I think when you're exploring, right, like you may not have done that yet as part of it, but like you said, the stakes are high. But I think that the thing that I have at least justified in my, so yeah, you're right. I think that the cleanup factor of the game is pretty critical to a game where you can literally destroy everything or hold everything, which isn't the case in Valheim.
Right.
But you can hold a lot, but it's not like as robust. But the new element that I don't think they would have planned on, but now I have to think differently about is which I think I might have done back in the old days and I kind of forgot that I did. But you basically, if you're going to explore deeply now with that rule in place, or whenever that rule, maybe it's always been there, I didn't know. You basically need beds as you go deeper. You need to build. The only way to combat that, if you want to go really deep, is to have a shorter distance back to the spawn, because you're gonna die. And if you don't want to lose diamond armor or something, you need to get there before 5 minutes is up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So now
I'm definitely at a point where from site B to the bottom of this thing I've built,
longer than 5 minutes.
Well, it's not longer than 5 minutes, but it's long. And if I go to that next one, that will be longer than 5 minutes, especially if I die while I'm still building it. So, that's coming.
Because of my spiraling down technique, I think just getting to the caverns is at least 3.
Yeah.
It's just like we're just going and going and going.
I had a cavern I was trying to get to, and I kept going down and down, and like occasionally I'd like tunnel out in the direction that I thought the cavern was. And the first time I did that, I was already too deep because I kind of lost track of how deep the thing was, So there was one where I dug a spiraling thing all the way down to bedrock and was like, I never found it. It's got to be there. What did I miss? And I'm like, oh my God, I dug 3 levels too late to go into it. And then I just never found it because I thought it would keep going, and it didn't, that's as deep as it was. But I went in that tunnel and I got to the end of it and I dug up and I was like, and then I found it. I was like, oh, okay. So this tunnel does actually get to it. I just was slightly deep. So that was funny too.
I just, the sense of being down there, and I definitely want to reserve some time to talk about the Lost Lake story too. But when we both were down there, and poor Moors, I just feel like he was, because he had no stuff when we had gone down the second time, and I could just even his character kind of has a wide-eyed look on his face, of like, what am I doing here? And he actually admitted that he usually plays in peaceful mode anyway.
Oh yeah.
So he is not used to having to deal with the stuff in the same way. And I'm usually on the, I'd crank it up the other direction. So I brought him into my world without him really wanting to, I think. But the sense of, because I hadn't brought enough torches as well, because it was way deeper than I thought. And by the time we got to the bottom and we're looking for stuff, and that's where I died and such, and it was getting darker, and I wasn't able to keep the monsters at bay. And like I said, I had to deal with Endermen. We just couldn't get around them. It just, the horror when you're down there and it's dark and we're kind of back to back, and I'm exaggerating and being dramatic on purpose, but it just
those are the feelings you reach for. Adventure cinema or whatever, pulp stories, whatever your kind of medium is, you reach for those as how you envision what's happening, which is true of earlier video games as well. We talk about how the graphics of text adventures were the best ever, right? Because it was all there. You were just drawing on your experience of these sorts of things to come up with perfect
Colossal Cave Adventure just feels like this, right?
It just feels like oh my God, my lamp just went out. Yeah, I'm gonna be eaten by Gru. What do I do?
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't get batteries. What am I going to do?
That's a great connection point too, because the feelings are very similar. So then on the complete opposite side of the scale,
Yeah, Lost Lake, the master of Minecraft. Yeah,
literally. And I don't know. It sounds like maybe his kid is somewhat involved too, and maybe the master. And Lost Lake is just asking his kid what. I'm kidding, Lost Lake, by the way. But
I think there's a certain amount of like, oh, I'm not too interested. That's too vanilla. I believe is what the response of the child was. In this game.
Really? They have like
the realms. Server? They like their mods, right? You know, it's
yeah.
Oh, the realms. That's too. Nobody plays realms who's anybody in Minecraft.
That makes sense. But I think all the tips and tricks are maybe coming. You know, because I asked Lost Lake something, and he's like, "Yeah, I need to ask my kid about that." Anyway, but so on the complete opposite side, I was in there again. This was. Actually, the stories are reversed. Because the Lost Lake story occurred first, and then the Moors one happened last night. So I hadn't.
We want to make sure when the ancient writings of the Minecraft realm server end of 2024 to beginning of 2025 are written. We want to make sure
get them in order. Yeah. Well, it's relevant because when Lost Lake came to visit, I hadn't achieved my milestone, my self.
Oh, I see. Right.
Right. Yeah. So I was still kind of like, I was, timid. Yeah, and he had, and I think on stream had just come on and did some more customization of my house, which was an improvement and like some new materials and stuff. So it's really starting to look cool. And I'll tell you about the signs in a second. But he, I was like, I'm entertaining a guest, and so he comes from, I didn't know how far until I went to go see him. So he came from quite a long ways.
Yeah, it's a long way to his place.
Comes in and is like, I'm showing him around a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to plan this, and this. I had not seen his situation yet, so I'm like talking like a caveman to him.
Yeah.
And he's like,
oh, how quaint,
an
Stone
alien
Age dweller.
Yeah, from another planet. It was like I was in the 1800s, unbeknownst to me, visited from somebody from the future.
Yeah. From the year from Buck Rogers, basically.
Yeah, and he was
came to your settlement.
He was very humble, right, and just kind of like, I think was accepting my entertainment, and like, oh, how that, he didn't say anything, and he's like, do you want to come see my place?
Mm-hmm.
And which I hadn't watched his stream yet. I'd watched a VOD, which I didn't fully understand what he was doing, so I didn't grok that was his house or his town. Two and two together now, I realize we're the same place. I thought he was visiting like a villager village, but it actually is his village in a way. Right. So he's like, okay, well, do you have time? And so I follow him. He has this causeway, and he has bored through, which listeners who watching his stream know all this, so I'm doing a repetition for you, but not everyone maybe is watching.
No, probably not.
he has caved, he's created a cave going from basically our area to his. It goes through multiple mountains, through multiple caverns, goes by this huge, all I could call would be an ocean.
Yeah.
And as we were sprinting through it, as I was following him, it felt like I was on this Disneyland ride where I'm just seeing biomes go by. It's like, here we have the jungle, and here we have, and he's just running. And then we get there, and he has created this monstrosity of Minecraft min-maxing where everything is automated. His super tower where he's automated monster spawns and is basically farming monsters as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
He has automated...
So he can enchant stuff, right? Yeah.
Right. He has automated the picking and growing of food. He has a lava farm, so he can, with lava, I guess there's drip lava stone that drips lava.
Oh.
Which I guess is a new thing. I didn't know about that.
That is,
and so he has so basically, and it's all like redstoned out, and there's these switches, and then these auto crates, I guess, that are happening
for timing of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, check this out, and I open a thing, and there's just like all this, all these resources that are being auto mined, and then it just completely blew my mind. And then he's talking about how he's like corralled in some of the villagers so he can, basically farm them for different resources, for giving them emeralds and stuff. So they give him stuff. And it's just was like, I was just telling him, it's like,
I'm at the point where I've yet to find an emerald.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And he's like, yeah, you can sometimes see them in the sides of hills. I'm like, yeah, that hasn't happened to me.
Yeah, I did find diamonds, luckily, eventually. So I do actually
I've
have
had diamonds and stuff.
some
but,
diamonds, but
I think I'm carrying 3 right now. But I also have a diamond pickaxe. So
yeah, it's just an amazing. It was just again, the best analogy is just I basically time traveled on this causeway that was
join
just,
me on the Enterprise.
yeah, it was just amazing, and he, he was just so humble about it, and like, yeah, look at this and just showing all, like, really stuff I did not know you could do in Minecraft. So it was like a whole nother. It was just a really interesting juxtaposition to Moors and I just trying to survive in a cave,
right?
To seeing this god basically come visit my town, or visit my home. And then the other side of it is that I don't know if he did it with the stream together or if it was just him, but he left these signs, 6 signs, one of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6, and they all say something different. So I won't like, if people want to see, you should come see them or watch the stream.
Does the last one say Burma shave?
No. The one of them talks about
that is extremely obscure, by the way. So,
okay,
you don't know.
I knew I wasn't going to get it.
Oh, no. Okay. No, it was. Well, I'll tell people because nobody's going to know what this was. This was a ad campaign back in the 50s and 60s, and this shaving company, Burma Shave, would write these like quips across multiple billboards.
Oh.
So like I would have to look some up because it's been a long time since I've thought about Burma Shave, but I'm sure there are people who think about it every day. But yeah, they used to do these things. Let me see if I can find a good Burma Shave series of billboards. That's not a good one. The bearded lady tried a jar. She's now famous. She's now a famous movie star. Burma Shave. So it's like,
right. So you're piecing them together.
You're piecing them together, and it's over the course of usually 5 or 6 things. If you think she likes your bristles, walk barefooted through some thistles. Burma Shave. So it's a classic,
brilliant,
classic ad campaign. Yeah, and it was just on the highways in the U.S. 1963. Yeah. So, they were all taken down by 1963. So, yeah, it was a whole
Mad Men.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff. Yeah,
exactly. But they did this because it was the era of the interstate, right? Because the Eisenhower interstate system was all built in the 50s, basically.
Got it. Yeah.
So there was all this new billboard space suddenly of like, and they were the first to really take huge advantage of it in a creative way. So
awesome. Okay, good. Well, I mean, similarly, Lost Lake took advantage of this as well. So, I mean, I mentioned it in the Discord specifically, and I actually didn't write the quote of the first one down exactly, but it basically talks about our place being our place in the universe and being alone or not. And it was a profound. I don't know if it was his or somebody on the stream suggested it or what, but it was a very, for me, and I don't want to get too gushy on this, but I hadn't played for probably a month, right? It was like because of we took a break and or at least a few weeks, and so I hadn't been on in a while. And the first thing I wake up to was this sign above my bed that was about our existence, and it actually hit me hard. Like I got teary eyed. I was like, because I didn't expect it, and it's a very nice, profound statement about are we alone in the universe. And it's in Minecraft, and it's in a game where we have a community server, right? And somebody else put it there who I know, right? And I've watched his streams. He's watched mine. We did the event last year, so and I feel like he's streamed even more right over this last year. So I don't know, it for whatever reason. I mean, you know me, I'm a kind of a softie anyway, and so there was this touching
except
moment.
To the people who work for you, so.
Except for you, you specifically, But there was just this touching moment coming into a game that I really this game is really close to my heart, and for many reasons. And so it was just a nice surprise to come in, and then I had a nice little Easter egg hunt where I was trying to find each of the signs because they hid them throughout. One of them says, "This house is inspired by Dark Souls." As an example.
That's awesome.
So I'm sure Calamity made up that one, but Yeah, so it's just nice to not know what's going to happen
Yeah,
when you
I'll
do
have to go looking around. I haven't had really a chance to go because I've been focused on this one thing,
that.
and it has taken like a couple of weeks of in-game time to actually achieve what I wanted. Because I would be like, digging down, and I'd be like, "What? Is it darker?" And I'd look straight up at the sky. I was like, "Oh no, I got to get back," because I'd be pretty far from home. And although I made a lot of like pathways and stairs and things like that to make it as fast as possible, it's still a ways to go. And I'm like, is there gonna be a site E down here at the bottom of this cavern, where I have another bed and whatever, and another couple of crates and whatever, the workbench. Or am I gonna like keep doing this ridiculous amount of running back and forth that I've been doing? I'm definitely getting to the point where it's a long way to go, but I've built it so nicely to get down there. It's like, well, what a shame if I never kept going back up and down. I actually had a site E planned out that I have not. I went and found where I would put site E, which is an above ground place, and I did a little bit of start on it, just like flattening it out a little bit and building some preliminary, like, okay, so when I come back here someday, I'll know it's here. This is where I did it, kind of building, but for my ultimate castle. But I haven't got to that yet. I've used an awful lot of cobblestone getting to the bottom of this enormous deep cavern, which has other offshoots I haven't even explored at different points. So it's
mind-boggling. Yeah.
It's crazy how big. Yeah, I mean, that the generation algorithm for this stuff is really, like, we did I think for Skyrim and definitely for Fallout 3. I don't think they did it much for Oblivion. They did like erosion modeling. I mean, they didn't write a whole thing for this. There are products you can buy that do sort of terrain stuff, like that. Like, okay, take this base terrain, but now do this to it, for 200 years, and like, how will it erode and things like that, right? There are terrain simulators like that out there and have been for a long time. And we had actually done that. I'm certain for Fallout 3 that was done with the data for the DC area. And then I think we did it a bit for Skyrim as well, to just kind of give it a more craggy, northern look. It's a very mountainous area, and then there's a lot of placement. Like, this was no shortcut. I mean, it was just like a little bit of more organic looking ground, right? But this is next level, this thing. And it can kind of be that because it doesn't have to worry about polygons really, because it's voxel based. In terms of rendering, it's not that hard, because every huge group of polygons is like a single pass. is one draw call. It's like, oh, look, here's 1,000 squares. Okay, draw call. Here's another 1,000 squares, draw call. So you can actually draw quite a lot pretty easily, and graphics cards eat that stuff up these days. It's the doing lots of individual draw calls that are expensive, especially if you're changing materials and things like that. So they could actually just do these crazy deep, like, how would this actually work, kind of like aesthetically pleasing cavern making, like this huge one near, site D that is like next to this town, that is just this really cool. Like, when I saw it the first time, I was just like, it's hard to believe this was not hand modeled, right? Yeah, it was just like, this is that good of it. Just like really cool, and like some interesting distinct features. These pillars, like I mentioned, that are kind of freestanding just in the middle of it, like what's that that valley that has them in the west. I forget what it's called, but that's in all the westerns, right? Where it's just like there's these.
Oh, in Utah, or
yeah, I might be in Utah. I'm not sure. I've never been there.
Or something.
Yeah, stuff like that. Right, exactly that. Where it's just like, oh, there's just this cool, like freestanding thing that's just really attractive right in the middle of this plain or whatever, and this was like that. And I was just like, that's amazing. I should build a staircase to it. So,
right. Yeah, it's and I feel like from the old days when I used to play, especially with my kid, those things have gotten way more elaborate. Like the caverns I'm finding, I've done a little bit of cave exploration, and in California specifically, there's what's the name of that national park? Anyway, and the caverns that I've found most recently, they're like, I feel like the old ones were always tall, like on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed this time is that I'm finding ones that have like more claustrophobic low ceilings that are kind of like still sloping down, and then they open to something big. So there's like better presentation. Like there's just a lot more variety than I remember from before. And I don't know how they do this stuff, but it seems like they keep iterating on it and finding ways to, improve and add stuff.
I had a spot where I got lost in the caverns that were mostly just built by them, and I was like, and because it was narrow like that, and a lot of it was very kind of, samey looking in the sense of the size, like there were no landmarks, I guess is the point, and I had kind of dug into this space, and then at one point I fell, but not that far, like 6 blocks or something like that. So I was fine, but like, okay, well now where am I? And like, but I'm like, this kind of looks familiar. Like, but where
getting lost down in there is terrifying.
Oh yeah, it was horrible. Of course, and then things were spawning, and I could hear them, and it was, and getting back, was just a whole thing. Yeah, it's quite a thing. Well, we've gone to 45 minutes already. We should turn to our takeaways. We are going to hit email in a mailbag episode next week. It's been piling up since basically we started the Minecraft discussion. If you have more Minecraft thoughts and emails you want to send in, you have until next Tuesday, the 21st, and the night of that is when we'll record. So we will aim to answer all your Minecraft or other questions there. And but for now, let's turn to takeaways. As always, sir, at the end of a series, I throw it first to you for your takeaway from Minecraft.
So my first one I've talked a lot about, so it won't be any surprise as usual, but I'm just calling it simple goals. And specifically, this obviously mostly applies to survival mode that I'm talking about, because that's the mode we're playing. And obviously Minecraft has a lot going on with it, and it's not just survival mode. But for me, it was important to play this way. And the reason I say simple goals is I think the reason that I love this genre is that it's a very easy concept to understand once you play in this mode, because it is really just about surviving, right? Like, yes, you might set a goal to go to the end or to the nether or whatever, and those are kind of long-term goals. You might set a goal to acquire a certain thing or travel to a certain place, but at the end of the day, you need food, you need protection, you need shelter, you need a bed, you need certain kind of fundamentals. And when it comes to knowing what to do on that fundamental level, a lot of times games add a lot, like an RPG or something adds a lot of extra goals to drive you along the way, especially if there's an elaborate story. And the fact that this game can be so pure and simple, and it's the way that it works, but also that the player goals, especially in survival mode, are so, distilled down and easily understandable. Even if you don't know how to survive exactly, that's even better, because you're kind of learning the next layer, right?
To see the first hour of my play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's my first one.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. It harkens back to the discussion we were having, I think, in the first episode, where I said it made me feel connected to humanity. And that was really what I was talking about, is all these like human needs, right? And the way humans develop and how it grew out of our needs, right? As animals, right? And particularly as animals with large heads, long periods of being incapacitated as infants, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely felt that myself when playing, but I did not take it as a takeaway. I'm going to take as my first takeaway that this is a game that has just one of the most satisfying core loops of like second to second of mining where you're just like, I'll just dig another level down, another level down, another level down. Like, it's so easy to just fall into a rhythm of, well, I'm going to go do this thing. I know how to do that, and I can just kind of be in that zen of, I'm doing the thing. I know exactly what I need to do. It's right at the level of difficulty for me. It's not like it's automatic. I have to pay attention if I'm going to, make it the way I want. But it is right at the level where you easily drop into flow. And of course, it also has the amazing audio of like the crunching through things, but also the little pickups of the drop stuff, which is like the bubble wrap. And it's like, it's just fantastic. Like, it's just really engaging, and just on its own, if this game were only, digging holes the game, they really nailed that part of it really, really well, which is critical because you do so much of it. And that it can be, despite the fact that I've been doing it, however many hours now in this game, that part is still excellent, and I'm never really, bored by that part of it. I might be frustrated that I'm having a hard time finding my way to a cavern that I think I know where it is, but I've dug too deep. But the pure moment to moment joy of actually doing the work of digging is really good, and that's really important. It's few games really nail it to quite that degree. I mean, this is like literally every second I'm like, oh, loop, and it's just it's really, really nice. So yeah, that's my first one.
Yeah, and I will say that, as because there's been so many copycats since Minecraft, very few of them get that part right. I will say, even Valheim, which is probably my favorite, has its pros and cons when it comes to the fundamentals of basically resource gathering or progression, that. So my second one, I actually wasn't sure how to word this exactly, because it's kind of like all of mine are very connected to each other. And I said technical goals driving innovation and style, and I don't think that's really accurate, because we don't really know if the voxel and simplistic visual style was a technical goal or technical limitation, but they're also closely coupled.
Yeah.
Part of the success of this game is its art style, is its simplicity in the blocks, the voxels, but it also brings this added, which again, games that are copying it or in its genre are choosing to do different art styles, but will never be able to replicate the expansiveness and variety of the way that they do it.
Yeah.
I
did look up voxels a little bit and why they were a thing, because I'd forgotten. And the biggest reason is for terrain modeling, because you can't do overhangs with height fields, right? Typically, terrain prior to voxels was just height maps, and they have this limitation that you can't. There's no over and under, right? You can't have a cavern in a height map, right?
Got it.
So it's an inherent limitation of that kind of modeling. I mean, there's probably some ways to get around that, but not in the sort of base way you do things. And so that's why it is
okay.
That way.
That makes sense. I mean, that digging down and having caverns, and So I mean, the takeaway is really just sort of like how tightly coupled the technical aspects of the game end up being with the simple goals of the game, with the art style. That they're all so like tightly locked into each other, and they allow each other to do what they need to do best, if that makes sense. The technical art and the simple goals, like, all kind of amplify each other. So and it's really like, a lot of times you'll play a game and they'll be like, clearly the art is the star, or this driving the show, or you know what I mean, or there's usually some aspect of it that kind of stands out. And the best games, as I think we've talked about a lot on the podcast, are the ones that kind of have all of those elements work together really well, and there isn't one that's sort of overly dominating. So that's it. What about you?
That's an excellent point. And I totally agree with that, and would not have come up with that one. So I appreciate you bringing that one to the table. I know it's your thing, but I still don't always pick up on that lens. So I think, I kind of talked about it today, but a lot because of that particular story. But like the finding ways to achieve goals that you set for yourself, because it's not often obvious how best to achieve these goals, right? And in my case, like I've set that goal, which it's not a milestone. It's just I want to get down to the bottom of this cavern, but also I don't want to just tunnel down and kind of miss all the cool stuff about it. I want to make it part of it. Like what I did is now part of the thing, so that anybody could come and look and be like, oh, somebody came here and did this thing. And being able to find ways to do that in the systems that they had was really rewarding for me. In a way it hadn't really been up till then. I mean, I had, lots of cavern spelunking, I would say, and generally the cavern stuff was cool, like finding caverns and figuring out how I could get to the bottom of it or get back up out of it. In the case of one that was an open air cavern near site D, kind of between site C and D, I actually found I could climb almost all the way out of it at a certain point because there were all these vines hanging down from the jungle, which was super cool. But anyway, I mean, just so that's kind of a big part of it, is I dig into these spaces and I'm like, oh man, I want to get all the way down to the bottom of that. And I can figure out how to do that. And that's just very rewarding. It's really kind of an engineering problem in the same way it would be if these were real places. Like how are you going to put something that will support your weight lower than you are? How much rope do you have? Well, I don't have any rope. I have blocks. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do that. And that was just super, super, super cool. So that is my second one.
Yeah, good one as well. Yep. Setting milestones and the fact that you can do it in the way that you want to do it most of the time is a rare game.
Yeah.
That allows you that. So and some of the stuff the community's building, like Mystery has this huge crazy thing that I see in the distance and haven't gone over to yet, but I think I know what he's doing over there, and the fact that he did it that way is just amazing. And he just thought of it, and to contrast other games in the space, something like Valheim, there's a double-edged sword to bringing more context to something. In that game, right. Building a Viking game that has some semblance of logic and physics and structural integrity. So, for instance, you can't build a building as high as you might want to because the structural integrity is not going to work.
It won't hold up.
But it's by doing that, it makes it more realistic and cool, and kind of makes it feel like I'm really a Viking. But then, in contrast to Minecraft, you can't really do everything you want to.
Yeah, you're trading verisimilitude for expressivity, right?
If you say so. Yeah, Gesundheit.
Thank you.
So it's sort of my last one, I guess, now that I think about it, relates to it. And the decision, it was kind of a toss-up because I did want to talk about the community, but maybe not as a takeaway per se. But the last one for me ends up being more about the decision to allow the player to impact anything. And it, every block can be dealt with. If that makes sense. Yeah. Even in, I think, almost every case, you can hold it in your hand. You can put it in your inventory. Everything has an entity. And that it seems like kind of an obvious thing, but it isn't, in my opinion. I think the cons, and maybe the voxels or whatever the technical choices they made allowed them to do that. But that is a huge thing to declare you're going to do, I think. Yeah. Now, looking back, we're like, of course, that's what Minecraft is. Duh. It's like, but imagine a world. Yeah. Imagine a world where that Minecraft doesn't exist, and then somebody thinks of it for the first time and says, no, you can. And the point you were making about, we were talking about using different tools to mine certain things, and sometimes you don't get the material if you're not using the right tool. That might be the case, but I think in most cases, even with basic tools, if you hack at it long enough, you might not get the resource from it. Say you're hacking at iron with a stone axe, or what was it? It was I did something. Axe. It was a redstone I was trying to mine redstone with a stone pickaxe. Oh, you don't get the redstone from it, but you can destroy the block.
Right.
And so they, even to that degree, they in some cases they chose not to limit you. It's like, okay, you might want to get rid of that block. You might not get the resources because you haven't gotten to the tech level that we want you to be at with iron, but we're still going to let you destroy the block.
Right.
And so they even went further than just blocking you with, you don't have the right tool, which most of these games do. It's like, oh, you can't actually interact with that thing at all. But in some cases, if you just choose to hack at it for longer, you still can impact everything. So it's just a bold choice and kind of really like humbling choice for them to do.
Yeah. That's super cool and a good one. All right, for me, I guess what I'll say is, the way I put it, I guess, is exposing easy creativity, like Lego, like just the simplicity of, if I can think of it and it kind of all connects together, I can build it. I mean, it might take me a while, and I'm probably not, I probably won't be thinking correctly about how thick blocks are and things like that. And I'll forget, I have no way to get from here to there because, I didn't make my base big enough, right? And whatever I'm building on top of was too small or something like that. There's issues that make it a little hard to do something really complicated. Like we talked about with my Site D skull vision of like, wouldn't it be cool if Site D was a skull with a mouth? I know I could do it. I mean, if I were any kind of sculptor, but in more, stuff that's a little more rectilinear, it's a lot easier to envision how you would build your castle, or in your case, your mountain eyrie of a house, or whatever it is. And that's, that sort of exposing that creativity and not having to, worry about things like materials in reality, but being able just to build the cool thing you want to build is also a special thing. And there's a whole mode around it as well, of course. We didn't play that at all, but I know that that's a part of it. And, I can remember seeing really extraordinary things. I think I can remember back in the day I saw somebody, and they did this by importing this from a CAD model or something like that, because it's another thing you can do. They had like a full scale Starship Enterprise that they put in Minecraft, and it's like, wow. Like, I think at the time you couldn't actually see all of it at once because it was so big, and the limitations. There are still limitations of rendering, and certainly this was 10, 15 years ago, around the time that was coming out, when there were all these kinds of videos. I think you could even download it. Like, you could just be like, I'm just going to download this person. You could go walk around the Enterprise yourself and see how big it would feel. And that was super cool. That was a thing. So yeah, there's lots of tools to do that. I know people have done like importers for like Doom WADs and things like that to import into creative mode. And but for me, just in the survival mode, if you want to take the time to do it and build your vision of X, this place you want to live, and if you want to do this craggy, if you want to do Strahd's mansion or whatever, Strahd's castle up on the hill overlooking some tiny village below and call it Barovia, you can do that. And I think that's really kind of cool. Yeah.
And like Lego, like to your point about the skull, like, yes, it's harder to do, but like Lego, the thing, and I think probably why it is so popular with kids as well, it's like, I feel like when you're in this block kind of motif or aesthetic, it does give you permission, I think, to attempt things that would be more difficult if you were obviously sculpting in Maya or something like that, right? Where it's like, okay, they're blocks,
or even clay,
or clay. It's like, I might be able to kind of rough out a skull, because it's blocks, and Lego is also very forgiving like that. It's like, you still need creativity and you still need to be clever, I think, about how to use Lego, but because of its aesthetic, it gives, I think, kids especially permission, or anybody really, permission to say, okay, I think I could actually make a skull, and I'm going to try, because the blockiness kind of forgives things and the flaws, and it's more abstract and stylized and all those sorts of things. And so it's kind of another brilliant, I mean, it's similar to pixel based games in general, right? Like, where it's like, there's some squint factor there that allows you, like, I haven't played Terraria, for instance, but that's one that comes to mind. in the same vein.
Yep. All right. Well, cool. Those are our takeaways for Minecraft. It is quite a game. I'm glad to revisit it. It's not something I was likely to revisit again, just because, I hadn't thought about it really in a while until it was kind of coming up in the zeitgeist a bit. So I'm glad we took a look at it. It was a good choice.
Yeah, and I was talking to Lost Lake when he was giving me. By the way, the amount of time he has put in is I could.
Yeah, I mean, he basically streams for a bit every day.
Yeah, and the tunnel he built from us to him is a testament to that time, because it is impressive. But
and he also moves way faster than I do. Like I'm very slowly moving up to an edge, click, and he's like tick, 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 as he runs. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that's never going to be me.
Right. Well, I did, even though we are, kind of trying to build up a little bit to the charity event with this. I think he said he's going to stream some of it.
He
right?
is, yeah.
After I finished Final Fantasy, yeah, that's a joke. I am on the final boss, but or boss says I'm going to stream it too, even separate from the charity. I want to do some Minecraft streaming, but I told him, even if you don't want to keep the server going, I would like even for the sake of the podcast, I'm happy to take it over, pay for the server or whatever. But for the podcast, I feel like I would love to see the realm last longer. I don't know if we do a year or not, but I want to kind of see the evolution, and maybe even we come back and talk about it a little bit with some updates like we do from time to time. Say, hey, what's up with the Minecraft
once we get
server?
to level 45 in World of Warcraft, maybe we can come back.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I still think we should go back to that, to be honest. But yeah, so maybe it goes nowhere. Maybe we kind of all peter off and we lose interest, but and we still should use the charity event as a nice milestone and demarcation for sure. But beyond that, I think it'd be nice to see where we go. If it goes anywhere.
I mean, I will probably, if I can figure out how to do it, at least download it at that point and make it available. So for people want to load it into a Java-based server at home, they can go and see and explore.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If I can, I don't know how any of this stuff works, so I have to go and look into whether that's possible. But if we can do that, I will, which should be fun to give to people and say, here, knock yourself out. So we'll make an announcement about that in the future and how you'd be able to get it if I can figure that stuff out. Cool. In the meantime, however, you can send us email, like for next week's mailbag episode, at devgameclub@gmail.com. We also love to get your reviews. I talk about that nearly every episode. It's really the only way we reach new listeners, because we're not on any of the social services anymore, and we don't advertise in any way, shape, or form, except by word of mouth. So use your words and your mouths, please, to share us around. You can find us on the web at Dev Game Club, and my co-host, as he mentioned, twitching at twitch.tv/
Tim Lungo Jr. with the JR at the end.
So, final boss, huh? I saw you found a couple of dragons last time, which was entertaining last week.
I think I'm finishing the game with one dragon out there.
One unfound dragon.
Yep.
That's gotta hurt.
Adds to the legend. That's okay. But yeah, I'm fighting some statues that are the alphabet. I don't know what's going on. And Kefka is just yammering on. And so I guess I'm in the final stretch.
You are definitely in the final stretch. So
yeah.
You don't have long to go. Are you streaming tonight, sir?
No, it would be tomorrow. Yeah, it would be Wednesday.
Oh, it's normally Wednesdays, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, maybe you can check that out the day this comes out. We also have a Discord, as we've mentioned a number of times. The big effort at the moment is for that Video Game History Foundation benefiting charity event, which will be 10 days after this comes out. So I hope you check us out there as well. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast, Karen Everts, and our logo, the Discord, our merch store, the website for the charity, all by Mark Garcia. Have fun becoming the quirk of your realm this week, and good night.
Good night.
You probably don't know what that means.
No, I don't.
Somebody said that they were the quirk, there was a quirk of our realm, and I said, I am the quirk of our realm.
What did they mean, though?
They meant that it seems like monsters spawn or stick around into daylight on our server for some reason, which might be just what the algorithm's doing these days. That there was a quirk of the realm. They said, no, I'm the quirk of the realm.
Oh, got it. Okay.